Hello, year 9 students. This is Mr. Shaban, and today we're going to discuss how we use energy and the fossil fuels. So let's start our lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to review some of the human activities that require energy. We are going to review the uses of fossil fuels. The key words of today's lessons are chemical energy, energy resource, along with fossil fuels. Let's start our video first with a quick question. Do we require energy? Basically, everybody requires energy in order to do our daily activities. Not only that, but also thinking and moving the hand to drink or eat. These movements, these tiny movements, are also requiring energy, and we tend to get our energy from the food as a chemical store for the energy that our body can depend on. Not only humans require energy, but also the machines require energy. If we're talking about the home appliance, they require electricity. If we're talking about other machines like cars, they tend to require fossil fuels as a source of energy. If we're going to look at the consumption of energy, we can find that the majority of the energy that is consumed around the world basically goes for the industry. And then the second largest amount of energy which is consumed by the transport, and then followed by homes and offices. Homes and offices are taking the smallest amount of energy consumption across the overall energy consumption. In industries, we use this energy for making things, as everyone uses things that are manufactured. So industry came as a result of the increase in our needs, and by the beginning of the industry, we have started to consume more and more energy, as the larger machines and factories tend to consume huge amount of energy in comparison with the human being. For the transport, in order to make the ship and the airplane along with the cars move from one place into another, we used to consume huge amount of energy by the help of these machines. So we need energy to travel around, and this energy is consumed by the devices or the machines like cars, airplanes, along with in homes and offices, along with the schools. We use energy for heating, cooling, cooking, lighting, and so on. We have different purposes to use the energy inside our homes, so you can look around and see how we can consume the energy inside the home. Scientists have found strong link between the development along with the energy consumption. They have found that the developed countries, they tend to consume more energy per person when it's compared with the other countries. So the developed countries, they tend to consume more energy as a result of having more cars, they have bigger houses, they have water treatment process, they are consuming more goods and more manufactured stuff. So all of these are making the consumption of energy very high when it's compared with the developing countries. This chart represents the amount of energy which is used by a person within a year. You can find that the highest amount of energy consumption per person per a year goes for USA, as the people over there consume a huge amount of energy because they have more cars, they have bigger houses, and they have lots and lots of industries going on over there. So all of these are representing a huge amount of energy in comparison with Europe, which have a lower amount of energy consumption per person per year. Middle East goes for the third place, China, Latin America, Africa, and ending with India. So this chart is representing how a person, based on his place, can consume more or less amount of energy in comparison with another person in a different place. Right now I'm going to leave you for 2 minutes in order to think about the answers for the coursebook questions on page 160, and then we're going to double check the answers together. The first question: what two types of nutrients are our main source of energy? Our main source of energy, as we have discussed in term 1, goes for the carbohydrates and fats. Carbohydrates, as you remember, splits into sugar and starch, so you can write sugar, starch, fats, or carbohydrates. Any of them is going to be considered correct. The second question: what is the original source of energy we get from our body? The original source of energy came from the sunlight. Sunlight was taken by the help of the chlorophyll in the plants, and then the sunlight was changed from a light energy into a chemical energy stored by the plant in a process called photosynthesis process, and then this plant was consumed by another animal or by us. This is how the energy flows from the sun toward our body. Based on the previous pie chart, which sector uses the most amount of energy? The sector which uses the most amount of energy is industry. So industry uses the majority of the energy that we consume a day. The second point of today's lesson is fossil fuels. So in the fossil fuels, we are going to discuss the types of fossil fuels. We are going to talk about the chemical stores of the fossil fuels, or as a fossil fuels. We're going to talk about where the energy comes from, and we're going to talk about generating electricity. The energy resources we use around the world can be split into different categories. The first large category is the fossil fuel, which is representing the oil, the coal, the natural gas, followed by a renewable energy resource. I want to ask you a question. Why the fossil fuel is considered to be one of the most important energy resources on the earth? I want you to think about the answer. Fossil fuels are stores of chemical energy. It's easy to send or to transport the chemical fuel from one place into another. If we're talking about petrol, so petrol can easily be transported from a place into another, or we can put some amount in our cars where it's going to send us for hundreds of kilometers. So fossil fuels are stores of chemical energy. The energy is released when we burn these fuels, and we'll talk about a good amount of energy. So that's why, due to the convenience in transporting the fossil fuel from one place into another, and due to the large amount of energy produced by the help of the fossil fuel, we can consider them a good source of energy. As the fossil fuels are considered the good or the better source of energy that we have on Earth right now, so let's discuss how the fossil fuels are made. Fossil fuels are found under the ground as coal, natural gas, or oil. The coal is made by the help of the plant that did not decay for thousands of years, and by the help of the pressure, high pressure and high temperature, the plant has changed from a plant into a coal. While the oil and the natural gas were made by the help of the sea creatures that did not remain, that did not decay. They are covered under layers of sand, and this sand was applying pressure on the sea creatures to change them from a sea creatures, remaining of sea creatures, into oil and gas. At the end, we are talking about the fossil fuels, but fossil fuels, they have some of the environmental impact. They are not really that pure energy because they tend to pollute the environment. As a result, people tend to use more electricity than fossil fuels. Some of the electricity that is generated can be generated by the help of water, wind, while the other amount of electricity that is consumed right now are coming from the burning fossil fuels. So most of electricity is generated in the power stations at the moment. They are coming from the fossil fuels, especially burning coal and gas. I'm going to leave you 1 minute in order to find out the answers for these questions, course book questions on page 162, and then we're going to discuss the answers later. The first question, which fossil fuel is used the most as an energy resource? We have the oil. Use the pie chart to estimate the fraction of our energy which comes from fossil fuels. It's about 80% of the energy that we consume comes from the fossil fuels. What name is given to the energy of a moving cars? The energy of moving car is called kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of movement. Many people use oil to heat their homes. Draw a diagram to show this energy change. When we heat or burn the oil to get heat, so we're changing a chemical energy which is stored inside the oil to thermal energy, which is the heat energy. Why is it wrong to say that fossil fuels are stores of light energy? Because fossil fuels are stores of chemical energy, not a light energy, because they were originally coming from the sea creatures, while the light energy comes from the sunlight. In today's lesson, we have discussed the following. We have discussed how the human activities requires supply of energy. We have discussed how the energy consumption varies greatly around the world. We have discussed how the fossil fuels are stores of chemical energy. We have discussed how the fossil fuels are burned to release energy. And at the end, we have discussed how the electricity is made by the help of the fossil fuels in the power stations. I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson, and see you next time.